Welcome to this episode of the Boys in the Booth podcast, episode 236. Myself, Chad Melbourne, joined by co-host Casey Abrams. No Harper Cody for this episode, and boy, oh boy, we won't get into it, but it happened again where Harp said he's ready. He actually picked the title of this episode, said he was doing some prep work, and then all of a sudden, he's stuck at Calvin's doing God knows what on a Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. So that's Harper Cody for you. We're not going to get on him too much, but that's why it's just the two of us, Case. But that's okay. We can get into this, can't we?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about breakout players in the NHL this season. So notably, not rookies. We're not going to do rookies. We can do that in a different episode because obviously the Calder race is hot right now. It's very spicy. This might be the first year that I can remember, at least in a long time, where for the Calder race, you've actually got a forward, a defenseman, and a goalie who all have a feasible chance at winning the thing. Usually it's just three forwards. So that's extremely exciting. But we're not going to do rookies today. We're going to talk about breakout players. You're wincing a bit, Case. I hope you didn't pick a rookie. I guess it can fit.
I didn't. Okay. I'm wincing because even though you said that twice, somehow there's still going to be Montreal Canadiens fans going, how did you not talk about Lane Hutson?
And you know what? That's exactly who I was thinking of. That's exactly who I was thinking of too, because obviously we want to talk about the guys like Lane Hutson or Macklin Celebrini or whoever, guys who are rookies having incredible years. Dustin Wolf, by the way, might get Vezina votes. He's been that good for that team this year. On Dustin Wolf too, before we get into it, funny thing is, he's been so good this season. Like I said, he might get Vezina votes. He might, he's definitely going to be up for the Calder Trophy by the end of the season. He's really one of the only reasons why the Flames are sniffing a playoff spot right now. But he's played Toronto twice this year, and the Leafs have torched him both times. So, on the biggest stage, it's like everyone in Toronto looking at, this is the next guy. Let's see what he's all about. And he's just put up two stinkers of performances against the Leafs. I don't know why, but it's funny how it worked out that way for poor Dustin Wolf. But, okay, we're going to get into breakout candidates. So guys who have either been in the league for a little bit, who haven't produced to the level that we were expecting, who are having great years this year. And there's a bunch of them. Case, we'll start with you. Who's a guy who really jumped off the page for you this season, whether it's in terms of production or physicality or something else that maybe he hasn't done in the past? Who's a breakout player for you this year?
Yeah, when Harp pitched this, immediately Dylan Holloway came to my mind. It was no-brainer. I wanted to talk about him. 2 years in Edmonton, up and down from Bakersfield, didn't really accomplish too much. He's a 15th overall pick. The first year he played 51 games, 3 goals, 6 assists. Kind of seems like maybe he was rushed to the NHL. Second year, 38 games, 6 goals, 3 assists. He did show something in the playoffs for Edmonton. Appeared in all 25 of their games that they when they went to the Cup final. 5 goals in that span, a few of them big ones. 2 goals and an assist in the Stanley Cup finals. Pretty memorable goals. And, that was enough for Doug Armstrong to see something in Dylan Holloway and go and offer sheet Edmonton, who was in an absolute cap crunch at that time, and managed to get him at $2.29 million for 2 years, giving up only a third-round pick, which right now is a masterclass. Since then, he's played 71 games this season, scoring 23 goals for the Blues and adding 34 helpers. Maybe it's the change of scenery, but it might also be Jim Montgomery. Since he's taken over in St. Louis, Holloway has 49 points in the 49 games that he's been there. I love watching him play. He's very physical. He's very aggressive on the forecheck, but yet has the talent of a top 6 forward. And those are becoming, you're seeing it more and more. That's important in the playoffs. And he's looking like a playoff performer and might be kind of dragging his team into the playoffs right now. They're going on a crazy run right now. He's second on the team in points. And they're kind of eking their way into a wild card spot here.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you mentioned his last 49 games as well, because that was a stat that's been kind of circulating over the past couple of days when it was at 48 in his last 48 since Montgomery took over. And yeah, just like what a player. It's found money for this team. And you can say what you want to say about the offer sheets, like whether they're dying or not, but this was a perfectly executed offer sheet on Holloway. Broberg, you can agree or disagree if it's perfectly executed. He's paid a bit more, and at the time I think, and myself included, were a little more skeptical about the Broberg one just because it was for a lot more money. But this Holloway kid, like, what a player, man. And like, you look at the Edmonton Oilers too, and wouldn't that be like exactly the type of player that they would want playing down their lineup who could contribute? Like it's just crazy that St. Louis was able to get a player this good for so cheap, and he's been so productive. And St. Louis now, and we've talked about this on past episodes in terms of teams who are sort of rebuilding on the fly, but St. Louis, is creeping towards a playoff spot. I think they are in that last wildcard spot in the West right now, right? So they're doing it by, they were expected to sell at the deadline, but then they just kept winning. So they didn't. And they're doing it by sort of bringing in a bunch of guys around the same age group. And it just feels like the competition internally on that team is just so strong. And it's incredible to watch. Like, they've got so many guys in and around the same age, all competing for a finite number of spots. But they've still got some of their older veterans who have been there and done that in 2019. They've still got Binnington, who, as we know, as Team Canada fans, can rise to the occasion in big games. So yeah, like, St. Louis is low key like one of the really interesting teams to watch here, and Holloway is certainly a big part of that. So I'm glad you brought up Holloway. I definitely wanted to talk about him, but you covered all the major points there, like producing for such a cheap price.
And he's physical. Like, he's one of those players in the 50 points, 150 hits, and 50 block shots. I think he's one block shot or something like that away from joining that club. Very few guys in that list. I think there's a few that come to mind right away, and Brady Tkachuk, and now his line mate in Ottawa, Fabian Zetterlund. But Dylan Holloway is one of those guys. He's not overly big, but he plays big. And it's been really good. And like, St. Louis is, it's an interesting team because the cupboards are full too. We realized that, especially watching this last World Juniors, where it's just like, oh, another St. Louis prospect. Oh, another St. Louis prospect.
So this past year, it was like St. Louis, Seattle had a bunch of guys. Like, Washington, low key, has some good young players coming up too. And
BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story. BetterHelp makes it more convenient to get you started. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy more comfortable and convenient. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Your next chapter starts today. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp online therapy at betterhelp.com/boysinthebooth in paid partnership with BetterHelp.
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sportsbooks to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there's never been a better time to get signed up, and we're here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping right away with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through the link in the description down below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use the link and support the boys. So one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. This podcast is also sponsored by the absolute best ticket app out there, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals on tickets to your favorite sporting events. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know if you're getting a good or a bad deal. If the tickets are green, for example, you better act quick and secure those things because that's a good deal. But if the tickets are red, maybe wait a bit before pulling the trigger and monitor the price in the app. SeatGeek just makes it way too easy. Anyway, here's the best part though. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code Boys in the Booth in all caps. So click the link in the description down below to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code Boys in the Booth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek. And speaking of Washington, and speaking of players who play big, how about a actual big guy in Washington that I want to talk about, that Harp was certainly going to talk about if he was on this episode, because his favorite team is the Washington Capitals all of a sudden. But it's Alexei Protas, dude. Third rounder in 2019, 6'6", 225 pounds, just a big, rangy guy, uses his size, but is also extremely creative offensively too. He has 29 goals, 34 points, or 34 assists for 63 points in 70 games this season. He had just 53 points in 159 previous games played over parts of 3 seasons before this year. So for whatever reason, this season, it just clicked for him. And he's just been scoring at an incredible pace this year and being physical and just being a guy who can sneakily rip the puck. And he's not even playing on the power play that much. He's not on that PP1 with Ovechkin and obviously the great chase and everything. So Alexei Protas, I mean, I know he is shooting a crazy number right now. I think it's over 22%. So that's probably not going to happen for forever. But Washington is a team this season, when you look at the numbers, they aren't generating a ton of expected goals, but they finish. They have finishers. And for whatever reason, they've been doing it all season. So analytics people have been saying, okay, Washington's going to come down to earth. They're on this like shooting percentage bender, blah, blah, blah. But it's been happening all year. It's multiple guys. And if you listen to, and I know you don't, but I listen to Real Kipper and Bourne a lot, and they have an analyst who, Case, you might not love that much, but you are familiar with, and that's Steve Valiquette, who is the CEO of ClearSight Analytics. And he talks about, teams around the league. And one of the teams around the league who doesn't warm up goalies and makes it really difficult for goalies to make big saves is the Washington Capitals. And what I mean by that is they don't take low danger shots at all, compared to a team like Carolina, for instance, who puts basically everything on net. So goalies who play against Carolina, if they're typical or if they're used to getting volume against, they're good because they feel like they're getting warmed up when they play Carolina. So that's why a team like Carolina gets goalied so often or has low percentage shooters. And it's just the style of play. And you can argue if it's good or bad. Shots on net are obviously a good thing because you fluke goals like that all the time. You get fluke goals. But Washington, for whatever reason, and I guess it's Spencer Carberry's system this year, they're only putting dangerous shots on net. They're not taking low percentage shots, and they're scoring a lot by doing so. So I don't know, 22.5% for Protas is very high. I don't think that will be sustainable going forward, but there might be something there going forward in terms of him being a point producer. So yeah, Protas was the guy I had to pick for a guy having a breakout season.
Yeah, what gets in a goalie's head more, not being warmed up or when someone plays Instagram hockey on you?
Yeah, Steve Valiquette knows a lot about both of those.
Anyways, Protas was on my short list for this episode as well, and he's the opposite of short, that's for sure. 6'6", Belarus bear on this team. Kind of seems like the perfect fit. This Washington team is large, heavy, and scary when it comes to the playoffs. So definitely another team to watch going in. But before the season started, we were kind of in the camp of not sure what to think about the Washington Capitals. We look like idiots now, but
Yeah.
we're always wondering where goals are going to come from, which is not something we've said in the last 10 years for Washington. But the last 2 years, we weren't quite sure. Well, Ovi's out of this world at the moment. Protas is going to pitch in 30 goals here. Tom Wilson's a 30 goal scorer for the first time, which shocks me. But they're all chipping in, and Protas is definitely one that's added a lot of offense this season. It's been really fun to watch. I saw the comments from him saying that he was like blown away by the number that his agent brought him on his new contract.
Yeah.
And that it was more than he needs, and like that he was like, why am I getting this much money? And I saw the comments before I saw the contract. I looked up the contract, 3.375. Like that is pennies for a 30 goal scorer in this league, a guy who's almost a point per game. They're going to be laughing with this guy for a few more years to come here.
Yeah, and wasn't it long too, like 5 years or something? Like that's I mean, this guy, like he's got the frame to be an absolute problem going forward. And like I said off the top, like he's one of those big guys. And I mean, I guess you kind of have to be like that in the new NHL, but he's extremely talented too. Like he rips the puck, he can dangle, he's got great hands. So yeah, like he's not just a big chopper out there who runs into you like, you know, Matt Rempe or someone else, but he's the complete package. So I know for a fact if Harp was on the episode, that would be the guy that he would be talking about. But because he's not, I had to bring him up. But well deserved, like having an incredible season. Okay, who else you got, Case, for a guy who's having a breakout year this year?
I'm not bringing up anything shocking here. Definitely something that's been going around the internet quite a bit right now. Now he's even in a dark horse Calder talk. He's going to get some votes, like 5th place, 3rd or 4th place votes. And that's Jackson LaCombe.
Mm-hmm.
He has really been kind of getting a lot of attention lately, and it's all due to his skating. Man, he skates like Cale Makar with the puck, and the way that he kind of zigs and zags through the whole team and can get the puck deep, and his first pass is quite nice, and he's really standing out for Anaheim in their kind of like late season push here. I know they're not trying to make the playoffs necessarily, and they're still kind of at the end of their rebuild here, but they're starting to play some competitive hockey here that's gonna, you know, it's gonna matter in the long run for the experience of these young guys on this team. And he's skipped from 17 points in 71 games last year to 36 and 62 this season. 12 goals is something that stands out to me. He's very good on the rush, very good skating, great passer. I think, you know, something to watch in Anaheim here.
For sure. And one thing I'll say about Lacombe, like the first thing I think of is he goes a little bit underrated there, you know, because as you see on the screen, guys like Olin Zellweger, Pavel Mintyukov, like they've just got guys upon guys there. And then obviously the forward group kind of speaks for itself in terms of young, talented players like Gauthier and Carlson and Zegras and McTavish, the list goes on. But yeah, so he's a bit overshadowed on the back end. But as you mentioned, putting up pretty good numbers here in his, I guess, technically 3rd NHL season. But yeah, he's having quite the campaign, that's for sure. And definitely a breakout player. There's so many guys around the league, by the way, from that 2019 draft, as you know, Jackson LaCombe is from that year. Doing some prep for this show, I was looking at the 2019 to 2023 draft and just seeing like what guys have broken in and stuff. And there are so many good players from that 2019 draft, man. Like it is pretty stacked. Whereas, you know, some of the later ones, especially at the very top, weren't as stacked, but that 2019 draft is gross. Like especially that first round. But yeah, Lacombe, good pick. Okay. This is the last guy I wanted to bring up, and in case, you know, I had to do it to you. I had to bring up Toronto Maple Leaf because it wouldn't be an episode of Boys in the Booth without talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And of course, it's the power forward himself. You mentioned it earlier. We were talking about Brady Tkachuk. We mentioned Tom Wilson in this episode. I'm going to mention Matthew Knies, who has been neatly attached to those two power forwards that I just mentioned, Tkachuk and Wilson, because Matt Nyes, Brady Tkachuk, and Tom Wilson are the only 3 players in the NHL this season with 25 plus goals and 150 plus hits. It's incredible. Like, when you watch this guy, I'm scared to know what his next contract is going to look like, especially because, I mean, hopefully it's in Toronto. I guess the saving grace is is the fact that he's an RFA, but he is quickly playing himself into like untradeable territory, like a guy that you want in your top 6 going forward forever and ever, because he brings a different element to the Maple Leafs. Matt Nyes does. He's so good out front of the net in terms of picking up rebounds and burying it in. He's like 6'3", 220, something to that effect. And he looks big out there. Like, if you ever see him, like, his neck is this wide and his head is the same width. So it's like he looks like a cement truck out there. And when someone hits him, like, that's at times what it's like. And if you remember back, Case, I'm not sure if you remember this hit, but all Leaf fans remember it. Earlier in the season, Zach Whitecloud absolutely tattooed Nyes.
Like, when you said his head and neck was huge, I immediately thought, yeah, big target for Zach Whitecloud.
Yeah, exactly. So Zach Whitecloud earlier in the year absolutely pasted him. Like, open ice, just completely demolished the poor kid. Got up right away. It was a bit of a headshot, but no suspension on the play because Whitecloud hit the chest first and it sort of rode up. So there were some fans upset about that. I wasn't personally that upset because earlier, maybe like 2 weeks before, there was another hit that was extremely comparable, but it hit the head first. And so anyway, there were differentiating factors between the two. But Matt Nyes remembered that hit. And when they played Vegas for the second time this year, they scrapped off the opening draw and it was electric, man. Like, that guy chucking knuckles, like, it's old time hockey. And if he can do that, you know, he doesn't have to do it all the time, but if he can do that every 15 games or so, like have maybe 4 or 5 fights a season, like, that's enough just to get blue collar fans like absolutely rowdy. He is an incredible guy. He's what you think of, or at least used to think of, when you thought of the Toronto Maple Leafs, when they had all those bruisers back in the day. And he just fits in perfectly with the top 6. And I haven't mentioned production yet, but that's why I brought him up in the first place. He has 45 points, 25 goals, 20 assists, 45 points in 66 games this season. He had just 35 in 80 last year as he kind of learned how to play in the slog that is the NHL season, you know, coming from college where he played his previous 2 years where they only play about half the games that they do in the NHL. Like, it was clearly tough for the kid, and you could see him down the stretch. Like, he had never played that much hockey before. You see it all the time with college kids. They just get tired. They get worn out. And this year, you know, after a full training camp, coming in more of like a secured role, Matt Nyes has been so good this year for the Maple Leafs. And like I said, I'm a bit nervous about what his next contract is going to look like, but I can't be thinking about that too much right now.
Yeah, that's kind of the looming thing over the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, is the Matt Nyes contract and what that's going to do for this team. And I think it's going to end up shaking things up because he's really what they've been needing this whole time, his style of play and what he brings, especially to the playoffs, hopefully. I mean, he's shown some stuff, but I think this year is going to be that first real test here. Exactly what the Leafs called for. He stresses me out when they play the Devils. I didn't think I could be more stressed out playing the Leafs. Got Matthews out there, got Nylander, got Marner, all guys I don't want to see score on my team. And now there's Nyes, who is just a threat at all times. So I really love his style of play, and it's definitely a breakout season. And it's been a long time coming for the Leafs. They've needed this.
Yeah, like a guy who, you know, you hope one day can be, you know, 80% of Brady Tkachuk and just be in your face at all times, but also put up like, you know, a point per game season every now and then. Like, that is just the perfect complementary player to fit in with the Maple Leafs. And And look, like, he's not a perfect player. He has his warts defensively, but in terms of just winning battles on the wall, like whether it's in the offensive or defensive zone, like I think he's learned a lot from Matthews in terms of how he positions his body. Like Matthews, obviously, pretty big guy, but doesn't use his size in the same way that Nyes does. But just in terms of, positioning his body, getting to an area where you can fend off the attacker when you're protecting the puck, like he does that really, really well. So yeah, definitely a breakout season for me. Like, as I've watched him this year, he's just noticeably more effective, I would say. And yeah, like I don't want to get it. Like I can't do contract talk right now. Like it is looming, like we've, alluded to here, but like, I got to enjoy the moment here, and hopefully things just work themselves out for Matt Nyes. But yeah, I mean, if the Leafs are going to be losing 5-2 to Nashville, like we can't be doing contract talk on top of that too. Like it's just we can't have problems compound here. But okay, so those are our breakout players. Any other names come to mind here?
You did 3 and I get 2. What's this?
Oh, you have another one? I didn't know.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. If you've got another one, let's go.
I've got a bit of a blast here. It's not one player. It's kind of a group of players, and it's gonna, appease our biggest fan, Corey Morrell, out there, because the Columbus Blue Jackets are a case study for breakout. And
that's right.
Like the 5 leading scorers on this team, you can all argue are having breakout seasons. I guess that's what happens when you're in a rebuild. Eventually, your team has to break out. Well, Zach Werenski, you can argue it's a breakout in that now he's solidified himself as elite. Before, he was always like a top pair defenseman in this league, a stud in Columbus terms, but now he's elite in this league. He's been phenomenal all season.
And he was hurt for so long, and that was the problem, right? We didn't know what he was going to be when he came back, but now we know.
Exactly. And then Kirill Marchenko, he's always been kind of his first season in the league. Give me a vamp for 2 seconds here. 21 goals in 4 assists in 59 games. He was,
I remember that,
in the spotlight only because of his 21 goals, 4 assists. Like that just doesn't happen. So he's always been known as a goal scorer, but it's starting to kind of come together. You saw last year, he's a bit more of a complete player. Well, this season, just shy of a point per game. He's been just a catalyst for this team on offense and on the power play, and out there every single goal, it feels like he's somehow involved. And then Kent Johnson, he had a great rookie season and then kind of fell off the last year, was down in the AHL for times. We weren't really sure what we were going to get out of him. Well, at a breakout season for him. Adam Fantilli starting to show, why he was drafted 3rd overall. He's breaking out. And then even Dmitry Voronkov, a guy like that, 24-year-old kind of Russian player, new to the league, late to join, but he had a good rookie season, but he's like another level this season and has been kind of a good fantasy pickup, like around the waiver wire constantly, but a good guy to grab at times. So there's 5 guys there who have sort of broken out all together as a group, and they're working their way onto a playoff spot just like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I actually thought about bringing up Marchenko or Voronkov because I know they're having great seasons, but I didn't look at Werenski in that way. But when you phrase it like that, sort of breaking out into that upper echelon of, over a point per game defenseman, like, yeah, that I buy that. That makes sense to me as a guy who's really breaking out. Because you're right, like we knew he was legit, but then after he got injured and missed so much time, it was like, okay, we kind of forgot about him. And And at the time of the Seth Jones trade too, it was like, okay, are they keeping the right guy? And now, even though Seth Jones is out of Chicago, that was a disaster. I think Columbus is pretty confident that they did pick the right guy overall.
Yeah. And Werenski, he's always had this skill. He's always had this talent and the room to grow on top of it. But I guess what was missing was 4 guys to break out alongside of him, because he just hasn't had that over the last few years. So having a few more players that can put the puck in the net for you, it's definitely going to help you. But I mean, 20 goals as a defenseman right now,
that's insane.
Impressive.
That's insane. One guy I wanted to mention too, but I kind of went the other way on it only because he was pretty good last season too. But it was Dylan Guenther. Like, Guenther played half the year last year. in the AHL. He had 28 points in 29 games in the AHL, and then he had 18 goals, 17 assists, 35 points in 45 games in the NHL last year for Arizona. But this year, like, he's already got 25 goals in just 58 games. Like, that's a pretty good pace. 49 points in those 58 games. So, yeah, like, this is a guy, he almost has 100 points in his career now in just 136 games. So, like, he was good last year, and that's why I didn't pick him. But that was a name that came up for me, Dylan Guenther, when I was looking into Matt Nyes, because he was also in that 2021 draft, which that's another good one too. But some late picks in that draft have been pretty good.
Yeah, it'd be scramble here to grab this stat, but in each game he's scored, Utah has earned at least a point. And
in every single game?
And he has 9 game-winning goals.
Wow. This season, in every game he scored, they've won.
They've got a point.
Wow.
A point, not one.
Oh, a point. Okay. That's, yeah. I mean, yeah. Still, that's pretty impressive. That's great. It's almost like, and I won't be able to pull it up now, and this is totally unrelated, but it made me think of this when comparing, like, you know, when guys do well, their team does well. Look at the splits. Like, if you could find the splits of Joey Decord playing goalie for Seattle versus Philip Grubauer, and then team record, like, it's absolutely insane. And the times that Grubauer gets pulled versus Decord, like, it's just not even like. So I don't know. That's what it made me think of, that because it's just such night and day. Like, I think Seattle's probably a playoff team if, you know, they have 2 Joey Decords, but that's a story for another day. But okay, Case, anyone else we can think of, guys who have broken out? Like, I mean, I feel like we've covered a lot of bases here, and we can't talk about rookies. We can't. That's one thing we're not allowed to do, because we're going to do another full episode on that. Honestly, like, maybe in the next couple of weeks before we do playoff predictions, that might be a good one. Always a fun one to talk about. But if that's all we got, then yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for listening to episode 236 of the Boys Move podcast, and we'll be back next week. Hopefully 3 men strong, but we'll see.